Show me your environment, and I'll show you your future, because no one ever rises much higher than the people and places they surround themselves with. If you really want to know where your life is headed, don't check your bank account, your degree, or your horoscope. Just look around you. Look at your circle, your habits, your conversations, your surroundings, because everything around you is quietly reflecting who you are becoming. You see, we like to believe we are independent thinkers, free souls making our own choices. But the truth, we are shaped, molded by what we consistently see, hear, and feel in our environment. Your environment is the silent sculptor of your destiny. Spend enough time around people who complain, and you'll start to complain too. Stay too long with people who dream small, and soon your dreams will shrink to fit their comfort zone. Sit long enough at a table of excellence, and you'll be forced to level up or leave. That's why this message matters. Because if your environment is your mirror, then it's reflecting not just your today, but your tomorrow. So stay with me till the end. I want to show you how to read that mirror, how to change it, and how to create a circle that lifts your life higher than you ever imagined. Your environment doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't announce its influence with fanfare. It simply seeps in, slowly, silently, like water shaping stone. Every day, without realizing it, we are becoming a little more like what surrounds us. The world we live in, the conversations we hear, the attitudes we tolerate, the energy we allow into our space, all of it is sculpting our future in ways we rarely pause to notice. The law of reflection is always at work. What you see around you is what you begin to mirror inside yourself. You are not just observing your environment, you are absorbing it. Think about it. You walk into a room filled with laughter and optimism. You feel lighter, more open, more alive. You walk into a room filled with tension and complaint. You feel your shoulders tighten, your patience shrink. That's not coincidence, that's influence. Your environment is constantly setting the tone of your emotions, the rhythm of your thoughts, the speed of your progress. You may not even notice it happening because it's so familiar, but it's shaping you every single day. We often underestimate the subtle power of surroundings. We think success is only about mindset, motivation, or talent. But even the best mindset will weaken in the wrong environment. You can have the heart of a lion, but if you live in a cage of complainers, that roar will turn into a whisper. You can have dreams as high as mountains, but if you plant them in the soil of mediocrity, they'll wither before they bloom. The environment always wins when the individual ignores it. If you surround yourself with people who gossip, soon gossip will feel normal. You'll begin to participate, even unconsciously, because you've absorbed the rhythm of that environment. If you spend time with people who constantly talk about ideas, growth, and improvement, your mind will start expanding just by being in their presence. You won't need to force yourself to think bigger. You'll breathe bigger thoughts because the air around you is filled with them. That's how influence works. It's not about pressure, it's about presence. Have you ever noticed how children begin to mirror their parents' gestures, words, and even tone? They don't learn those things through lectures. They absorb them through exposure. Adults aren't much different. We are all products of exposure. You can't sit in the smoke and expect to smell like fresh air. You can't spend every evening in front of negativity and expect your mind to radiate peace. You can't talk daily with people who doubt, criticize, and complain, and expect your own faith in yourself to remain untouched. The reflection becomes the reality, and yet, so many people live unaware of this law. They walk into rooms without noticing the energy. They engage in conversations without realizing they are trading pieces of their perspective for someone else's. They let television, social media, and casual company fill their mental space, not knowing those inputs are becoming their identity. What you continually consume, you eventually become. The mind doesn't just reflect the environment, it repeats it. Imagine you're a lake. The quality of your reflection depends entirely on what's happening around you. If the air above is clear, the water reflects clarity. If the sky is stormy, The water ripples and distorts the image. The lake cannot separate itself from the sky, and neither can you separate yourself from your environment. If the people around you are chaotic, bitter, lazy, or lost, you will find yourself wrestling with the same storms, not because you want to, but because you're reflecting what's consistently around you. This is why the most successful people in the world are intentional about where they live, who they spend time with, and what they feed their minds. They understand the law of reflection. They know that to maintain clarity, you must guard your atmosphere. You can't afford to let just anything or anyone enter your space, because what enters becomes what echoes inside you. You don't get to choose whether your environment affects you. You only get to choose which environment you allow to do it. Some people say, I can handle it. I'm strong enough not to be influenced. But strength isn't the absence of influence, it's awareness of it. Even strong people get pulled by the tide if they stand in it long enough. If you hang around small thinkers, your big dreams will start to feel unrealistic. If you're constantly around people who joke about failure, your ambition will start to shrink in self-defense. That's not weakness, that's human nature. The environment teaches the mind what's normal, and the mind always seeks to fit in with what's normal. So if you want to change your results, you must first change your surroundings. If you want peace, surround yourself with calm people. If you want growth, surround yourself with learners. If you want faith, surround yourself with believers. The mirror doesn't lie. It only reflects what's there. Don't fight the reflection. Change what's being reflected. Every great change begins with awareness. So take a walk through your daily environment, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. What do you see on your walls? What do you hear in your conversations? What energy do you feel in your home, your workplace, your friendships? Are these things inspiring you or draining you? Are they lifting you higher or pulling you back to the comfort of average? Because what you tolerate will eventually become what you imitate. If you surround yourself with ambition, sooner or later you'll start feeling restless with mediocrity. If your environment demands growth, you'll start demanding more from yourself. But if your environment accepts excuses, then every time you fall short, you'll find comfort instead of correction. And comfort is the quiet enemy of progress. The moment you get too comfortable, the mirror stops showing you where to improve. It starts showing you reasons why you shouldn't try. Think of your environment as a thermostat. It doesn't just measure your temperature, it sets it. If you live in an environment of discipline, you will rise to meet it. If you live in an environment of laziness, you will slowly sink to match it. Most people never realize they're not living at their true potential. They're living at their environment's average. That's why the law of reflection isn't a motivational slogan, it's a principle of life. Everything you see, hear, and feel is shaping you into a reflection of itself. The music you listen to, the books you read, the voices you trust, the spaces you occupy, all of it is painting the picture of who you'll be 6 months from now. So if you want to know where you're headed, stop asking your goals for clues. Ask your environment. The answer is already around you. The reflection is always telling the truth. Every human being is like a seed, filled with potential promise and possibility. But even the most powerful seed cannot grow in the wrong soil. The soil determines the growth, the depth of roots, and the reach of branches. And in life, that soil is the people you surround yourself with, your circle, your company, your associations. They form the invisible ecosystem in which your character either thrives or withers. You can have the most extraordinary goals, but if your circle doesn't support them, your goals will suffocate. You can have vision, ambition, and talent, but if you plant them among people who are content with average, your fire will fade to match their comfort. It's a simple truth that many ignore. You are not just influenced by your circle, you are shaped by it. You absorb their language, their mindset, their habits, their fears, and their limits. Spend time around dreamers, and you start to dream. Spend time around doubters, and your confidence begins to crumble. It's impossible to remain untouched by the people who occupy your space. Human beings are contagious. We catch attitudes like colds. We adopt beliefs like accents. We mirror behaviors without even realizing it. If you want to know the direction of someone's life, look at the 5 people they spend the most time with. Because proximity is power, for better or for worse. You can't expect to stay motivated while surrounded by people who quit at every challenge. You can't expect to grow while surrounded by those who resist change. And you can't expect to rise while surrounded by those who are content staying where they are. Your circle is either stretching you or shrinking you. There is no middle ground. Think about how easily influence works. A single conversation with a confident person can reignite belief. A single evening with a complainer can drain your drive. Influence doesn't ask permission. It enters quietly and settles deep. That's why it's not enough to simply have goals. You must also have guardians of those goals, people who protect your growth instead of poisoning it. If your dreams are precious, then you must be careful with the company you keep, because not everyone deserves to hear your future before it happens. The people in your circle are like mirrors, constantly reflecting back the person they expect you to be. If your circle sees you as someone capable, your behavior rises to meet that expectation. But if your circle sees you as someone ordinary, limited, or stuck, you'll begin to shrink into that image. That's the unspoken contract between people we adapt to what others reflect back to us. So when you choose your company, you are choosing the version of yourself that will exist tomorrow. Spend a week around people who talk about ideas, progress, and purpose, and you'll feel yourself waking up mentally. Spend a week around people who talk about gossip, problems, and blame, and you'll feel yourself shutting down emotionally. It's not that one group is smarter than the other. It's that one group feeds the soul, while the other drains it. The energy around you becomes the standard inside you. Many people stay trapped because they underestimate the weight of their circle. They think they can outgrow their environment while still living inside it. But it doesn't work that way. You can't grow tall in a garden that never gets sunlight. You can't evolve in a space that celebrates staying the same. Growth requires tension. It requires exposure to people who challenge you, stretch you, and refuse to let you settle. That's why you must always keep company with people whose presence reminds you of your potential, not your past. Every friendship, every relationship, every association is either an elevator or an anchor. It's either lifting you higher or holding you down. If you walk with those who complain, you'll soon speak their language. If you walk with those who create, you'll start producing ideas of your own. That's why successful people are so intentional about their inner circle. They understand that the company you keep is the curriculum you learn from. You don't just pick up people's habits, you pick up their standards. And your life will rise or fall according to the standards you accept. If you want to change your life, start by auditing your circle. Who are you listening to daily? Whose opinions are shaping your confidence? Who are you spending your quiet moments with? Because even silence among the wrong people is loud with limitation. The moment you realize that your circle is either adding value or subtracting it, you begin to take your associations seriously. You begin to realize that not every old friend belongs in your new future. The truth is, you can't take everyone with you. Growth demands separation. When you start moving toward excellence, you'll notice resistance from people who were comfortable with your old level. They might not understand your hunger, your discipline, or your decisions. But remember, their confusion is not your problem to fix. You're not leaving them behind out of arrogance. You're creating distance out of necessity. Because every time you compromise your pace to accommodate their comfort, you delay your own destiny. It's easy to underestimate how much you change when you change your circle. You start using different words. You start setting different goals. You start expecting more from yourself. It's not that you've become a new person overnight. It's that your reflection changed. You became what your environment began to reflect back to you. That's why when you start spending time around high achievers, you'll notice something different. They talk differently, think differently, manage time differently, and approach problems differently. Their normal is excellence. Their default is discipline. Their focus is the future. And when you spend enough time in that atmosphere, excellence stops feeling intimidating and starts feeling natural. That's the quiet miracle of association. It doesn't demand that you change instantly. It invites you to rise gradually. You start thinking, if they can, I can. You start adopting their patterns of thought, their standards of performance. The bar rises automatically. You don't have to try harder. You just have to stay longer in the right company. Over time, you'll notice that you've become more decisive, more consistent, more focused. And it wasn't because of a motivational quote. It was because you changed your environment, and your environment changed you. But the same law works in reverse. Stay too long around people who tolerate excuses, and you'll start justifying your own. Stay too long with people who fear risk, and you'll start doubting your courage. Stay too long with those who make fun of ambition, and you'll begin to laugh at your own dreams. That's why it's not cruel to outgrow people. It's necessary, because your circle is not just a social choice, it's a spiritual one. You are deciding every day who gets access to your mind, and your mind decides everything else. When your circle begins to change, your future begins to move. Sometimes, just one new connection, a mentor, a friend, a thinker, can alter the course of your life entirely. One conversation with someone who believes in your potential can undo years of self-doubt. That's the power of proximity. Growth doesn't always come from information. It often comes from association. So, if your circle doesn't challenge you, it will chain you. If your environment doesn't stretch you, it will shrink you. You are always becoming like the people you spend time with, whether you like it or not. That's not a warning, it's a law. And the moment you understand that, you begin to take responsibility for the company you keep, because your future depends on the soil in which you choose to grow. Here's the most empowering part of the entire idea. You don't have to be a victim of your environment. You can design it. Most people live reactively, shaped by whatever surrounds them, as if life is a set built by someone else. But the truth is, your surroundings are not permanent. They are programmable. You can choose what you listen to, what you watch, where you go, and who you allow into your mental and emotional space. You can build an environment that doesn't just support your goals, it pulls you toward them. You can create a world that silently demands your best every single day. Think about how much time we spend inside environments that either dull or sharpen us. The music in your ears, the voices at your table, the items on your desk, the books on your shelf, all of these are silent teachers. They train your mind in one direction or another. If your desk is cluttered, your thoughts begin to scatter. If your home is filled with distractions, your focus starts to leak. If your daily circle is filled with people who normalize mediocrity, soon excellence will feel unnecessary. That's the invisible power of environment. You're not just living in it, it's living in you. Now imagine what happens when you begin to take control of that. You start curating your surroundings like an artist designs a canvas. You remove the noise. You add the colors that inspire you. You place reminders of who you want to become, not who you used to be. You stop waiting for motivation and start building a space that keeps you motivated naturally. That's not luck. That's design. If you want to get fit, don't just set a goal. Set an environment. Put your workout shoes where you can see them every morning. Keep healthy food in reach and junk food out of sight. If you want to grow financially, make sure your environment talks about money in terms of discipline and value, not greed or scarcity. If you want to become more peaceful, start by removing chaos from your physical surroundings. Clean spaces breed calm minds. The environment is always whispering suggestions to your behavior. When you take control of those whispers, you take control of your life. We often wait for our emotions to guide us, waiting to feel inspired, ready, or confident. But emotion follows environment. You can't feel productive in a lazy space. You can't feel brave in a fearful space. You can't feel hopeful in a toxic space. But when you start designing where you spend your time, you begin to design what you feel inside. A well-crafted environment becomes your emotional thermostat. It regulates your state, your focus, your performance. Most people think they need more willpower, but what they really need is fewer temptations. If your environment is filled with distractions, no amount of willpower will save you. But if you remove the friction and set up systems that make the right choice the easy choice, you won't need motivation. You'll have momentum. Willpower is unreliable. Design is consistent. That's why winners don't depend on discipline alone. They depend on structure. They set up their environment to make excellence automatic. Imagine two people with the same goals. One lives in an environment filled with clutter, noise, and negativity. The other lives in a space that's clean, calm, and surrounded by reminders of progress. Even if their ambition is equal, their outcomes will not be. Because success doesn't just depend on what's inside you. It depends on what's around you. One will constantly fight their surroundings, while the other will be quietly lifted by theirs. You have to become intentional about what surrounds your mind. If you want wisdom, fill your environment with it. Books, podcasts, conversations, mentors. If you want confidence, expose yourself to environments that remind you of growth, not fear. If you want peace, choose places and people who don't thrive on drama. The mind absorbs what it is repeatedly exposed to. So don't just protect your mind, feed it properly. Sometimes, the most powerful change comes not from adding new habits, but from subtracting harmful influences. The wrong environment doesn't just delay success, it replaces it with survival. You start living in reaction mode instead of creation mode. You wake up every day fighting distractions, noise, and negativity. But when you design your space with intention, you wake up in an atmosphere that's aligned with your purpose. That's the difference between existing and evolving. People often say, I can't control everything about my environment. That's true. But you can control more than you think. You can control what you consume, how you spend your time, and who you give access to your energy. You can't choose every person who enters your life, but you can choose how long they stay. You can't control every situation, but you can control how much of it you allow to shape you. Life isn't about complete control. It's about conscious direction. Start by noticing the subtle influences around you, the background music that shapes your mood, the conversations that dictate your mindset, the lighting, the clutter, the energy of the people near you. None of these seem important, but together they form the psychological climate you live in. Just as plants grow differently in different climates, so do people. You can't grow your potential in an emotional winter. You need warmth, light, and oxygen, the environment of growth, not decay. Designing your environment also means designing your relationships. Surround yourself with people who make excellence feel normal. Spend time with those who are already living the standards you aspire to. When your circle raises your baseline, success stops feeling like a special occasion. It becomes your daily habit. That's why it's crucial to spend less time trying to inspire those who refuse to change and more time around those who inspire you to change. Think of it like a garden. You can't just pull weeds and hope for flowers. You must plant intentionally. You must water consistently. You must expose your garden to sunlight and protect it from harmful pests. The same goes for your mental and emotional environment. You remove negativity, plant positivity, feed it with learning, and guard it with discipline. That's how you grow into the kind of person who thrives regardless of circumstances. Over time, your environment becomes your silent partner. It starts to do some of the heavy lifting for you. You won't have to push yourself to read. You'll just naturally reach for the book that's sitting within arm's reach. You won't have to remind yourself to work out. You'll just see your shoes waiting at the door. You won't have to search for peace. You'll feel it because your surroundings are aligned with your purpose. And here's the beautiful thing about it. When you change your environment, you change your identity. You begin to see yourself differently because you've stepped into a world that expects more from you. The energy around you becomes the new normal, and soon the old version of you feels out of place in this new space. That's how transformation happens, not overnight, but through daily exposure to an environment that reinforces your best self. There's a quiet power in walking into a room that represents your future, not your past. The walls remind you of who you're becoming. The atmosphere invites your discipline. The people around you expect your greatness. You start living as if you've already become that person, and slowly you do. Because we always rise to the level of our surroundings. It's easy to underestimate how much the environment influences our emotions, our choices, and our destiny. But when you begin to design it with purpose, everything begins to align. The energy, the focus, the mindset. You stop reacting to the world and start creating your world. And one day, you'll realize that your environment is no longer something you fight against. It's something that fights for you.